My dear student, welcome to all. My name is D. Pandit. I shall teach you today about the chapter 5 Agriculture. Now, question here, what is the agriculture? You know, agriculture is the activity or the primary practice activities who produce the different types of the crops by the farmers on a small lands or the big lands or the farms. That is also called the agriculture. Agri means prepared and culture means different types of the work done by the peoples for the preparation or the productions of the crops. So, in this chapter, we will also discuss about the agriculture, type of agriculture, importance of agriculture, factors who affecting to the agriculture of the world. Now, firstly, I want to discuss about the important points agriculture. Now, firstly, what are the characteristics of the agriculture? There are so many characteristics of the agriculture. Agricultural, first point, agriculture started before the 10,000 years ago. That means 10,000 BCE and continuous practices by the peoples for survival of life and the livelihood. So, a agriculture, first point, that means I have also mentioned, it is also started in the ancient times. Number two, agriculture practices by the peoples for the purpose of economic growth. Therefore, it is also known as the backbone of the economic conditions of the world or a particular country. Now, next point, maybe agriculture practices in the world for the purpose of rearing creatures, or the peoples also practices for the pasture lands for the creatures or the animals rearing, etc. And in this time, so many products produced from the agricultural products. So, industrial development also dependent on the agriculture. So, agriculture is the backbone parts of the industries also. In the recent time, we can say the agriculture is the main purpose or the themes for the all practice or the amongst the all practices in the world. My dear student, you know the agricultural practices mainly started in the that means Indus Valley civilizations, Egyptian civilizations, Mesopotamian civilizations also started in the Neolithic age, in the historical periods. So, next point, we can also start it, and you know, presently about 37.5%, approximately 37.5% peoples of the world engage in the agriculture. But in our country, 52% peoples engage and involved in the agricultural practices. So, over the agriculture, maximum peoples, that means loaded on the agricultural practices. So, in our countries, India, in our countries has importance of the agricultural scene. Next, we can also say in this figure, we can also show the different parts of the world use of the agricultural fields. First, 37%, suppose that areas of the world and engage agricultural practice of the people's 37.5%, but India's position 52% and 37.5% and other countries etc. usage of the agricultural lands for the agricultural practices, and raw materials also produced from the agricultural fields for the purpose of agro-based industries. In this time, under the agro-based industries run a cotton textile industries, sugar industries, and jute industries. So these types of the broad industries dependent on the agriculture. So agriculture is the very important parts of the practices and the livelihoods, and that means you can say for the purpose of the survival of life. Next points is the factors who affecting to the agriculture of the world. There are so many factors affecting to the agricultural practice of the world. Are number one, first is the physical factors, and another is the human factors. Under the factors, and factors divided into two categories. First is the physical factors and another is the human factors. Under the physical factors, land, soil, and the climate affected to the agricultural fields. Under the human factors, we can also study about the labor, market, different types of the agricultural equipments, and fertilizers, manure, etc. Manure, transports, etc. These are the so many factors affecting to the agriculture of the world. First, under the land, we know that land is the important part for the agricultural practices. On the land, that means firstly cultivated to the land, ploughing of the land by the different equipments, that means use of the tractors, hoe, digging sticks, etc. for the digging of the lands, and prepare softed soil constructions, and mixed different types of the humus and other materials, manure, for the preparation of the land for the farming, suitable farming of the cultivation. And second factors, we can also say land, which types of the land suitable for the agriculture, which types of the land suitable for the rearing farming, which types of the land suitable for the cultivation of the different fruitial plants, flowering plants, and the food grains, etc. So, firstly we know a plain region, plain area is the suitable for the agricultural farming than the hilly areas or the plateau region, because in the plain regions made and found a thick layer of the soils, but in the hilly areas found a very thin layer of the soil. So we know agriculture, for the agricultural practices required a thin layer of the good quality of the soil and fertility of the soil. So, a plain area is the suitable for the agricultural practices. In the world's mainly seen the Russian areas, Russia, USA, Brazil, China, India, Bangladesh, and Germany. These countries are also known as the agriculture and developed through the agricultural practices. So, in our country, India is also known as the agricultural country in the recent time also, because a vast areas usage in the for the agricultural practices. Next, soil construction is also affected to the agriculture. In which types of the soil required for the agricultural? For the agricultural practices required a fertility of the soil, that means alluvium soil, loamy soil, clay soil, important for the agricultural practices or the agricultural products. High yielding products and high yield seeds usage in the fertility of the soil where is also found there. In our countries, in the plain regions, that means Ganga, Brahmaputra regions, Mahanadi, river valley basins or the delta regions, and the Godavari river valley basins has also practices the agricultural, and so many products also produced in the agricultural practices and agricultural areas due to the high quality and good quality of the soil also found here. Next, maximum products also produced in the alluvium soils, and that area is also found not everywhere found equally. So, distributed of the soil, that means very varies place to place, and the time to time also change. Next point under the physical factors is the climate. We know that climate is also important parts and affecting to the agricultural practices. Because in the for the agricultural practices required the moderate types of the climate for the particular types of the crops. For the example, rice cultivated in this in which areas of the world, that area has also found the monsoon types of the climate or the moderate types of the climate, but high temperature required for these crops, approximately 20 to 28 degrees Celsius temperature required, 20 to 28 degrees centigrade temperature required for the rice cultivation. But a rainfall also required 100 centimeter to 150 centimeter rainfall. In which areas also found these types of the situation and good fertility of the soil, then that area has lot on the lot scale productions of the rice. But wheat cultivations, for the wheat cultivations required very less temperature and rainfall. Why? Because these types of the crops in wheat cultivation mainly produce in the winter seasons and the cold climatic conditions areas. For the example, Ukraine, Russia, USA, Argentina, South Africa, China, and in India, northern parts of India, and some parts of the Asian country, that means Korea and Myanmar has also important for the wheat cultivation, because These countries has also found moderate and suitable climates for the wheat cultivations. But and we know in the North America, prairie regions, in the South America, pampas regions, in the South Africa, veld regions, in the Australia, Southwest Australia, downs regions are the important areas for the particularly wheat cultivation. Maize and beverage crops, next fiber crops, etc. So many types of the crops also produced and dependent on the climate. So we can say that physical factors also affecting to the agricultural practices. Next is the human factors. We know labor, and for the particular crops required abundant labor, but some crops has also very small, on the small scale labors also required. For the example, in the rice cultivation required the abundant labors, but wheat cultivations and the millet types of the crops, that means jowar, bajra, ragi, etc. is produced, and but and according to through the help of the use of the machinery parts, therefore very less labor also required there. And markets also affecting to the agriculture, ki high products also for the selling or the purchasing requires nearest of the market from the agricultural fields. And the fertilizers, that means the different types of the fertilizers used for the high productions of the crops, and the manure also used for the purpose of the growth in the fertility of the soil. And the transportation facility is also required for the transported to the different types of the crops from the agricultural field to until the markets and the house. So these types of the so many factors affected to the Indian agriculture or the world agriculture. Next, thank you to all today. Next day we will also discuss about the type of the agriculture.